This podcast was produced using artificial intelligence and refined by human editors.
Hey adventurers, welcome back to another whirlwind episode of Travel with Lara and Luca, where today it's time to dive into the vibrant heart of India.
That's right, Luca. We're voyaging into the multifaceted city of New Delhi, a maze of stories, bustling markets, and a history as colorful as its streets. But before we get caught up in the spices and the saris, let's share what first struck us about this incredible city.
New Delhi, oh New Delhi, where do I even begin? Remember that one time I told you about my first rickshaw ride there?
How could I forget? And speaking of unforgettable, I'll always cherish the hums and honks that welcomed me as I stepped out of the airport. It's a symphony that's uniquely Delhi.
Absolutely. And those first impressions, they lay the foundation for an adventure unlike any other. You know, Lara, that rickshaw guy thought he was driving a Formula One car through the narrow lanes.
I told you, Luca, in Delhi, everything moves with a spirit of its own. But your rickshaw escapade isn't the only fun story we've got. That time I got lost in Chandni Chowk.
Oh, that's a classic. We're talking about a treasure trove of lanes where every turn tells a different tale.
Right. And there I was, trying to find the perfect silk scarf, when I ended up being part of a wedding procession instead. They simply assumed I was one of the guests.
Ah, that's Delhi for you. One moment a tourist, the next, your family. All of this sets the stage for today's episode, where we'll take our listeners through the iconic sights of New Delhi.
Indeed, Luca. And trust me, by the end of it, our listeners will know the city's heartbeat. But let's savor this moment and talk about what makes New Delhi a place that captivates everyone who sets foot there.
Could it be the colors that burst forth from every corner, or the scents that range from jasmine to mouth-watering street food?
Oh, the food. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The colors are like the city's palette, expressing its mood. The saffron of the monks' robes, the emerald green in the parks, the bold reds of its bustling bazaars.
And the blend of modernity with tradition, right? You've got these ancient monuments stretching up to the sky and just a stone's throw away, shiny malls reflecting the sun's rays.
It's a place where history breathes in the alleyways, Luca. Not to mention it has this uncanny ability to just whisk you away from one era to another within moments.
That's the magic, Lara. New Delhi, where empires rose and fell, where culture thrives, and where stories live in the walls.
And speaking of empires, nothing says grandeur quite like our first iconic site. Coming up next, we'll be sharing the majesty of India Gate with tales of valiance and honor.
Stay tuned, because we're about to step into a postcard scene and sprinkle it with a touch of personal flair, Lara style.
And believe us, you don't want to miss Luca's attempt to become the unofficial photographer of New Delhi. Easel ready?
I was born ready, Lara. Folks, we'll be right back with sights so iconic, you'll feel like you're walking alongside us through the capital's historic lanes.
And that's just the beginning. We'll be serving up a slice of Delhi's delicious cuisine soon after. But first, let's step through the giant archway of India Gate and see where history meets the horizon.
Hold on to your chai, folks. This ride through time and splendor is about to begin.
Prepare to have your senses dazzled as we take you to the heart of India's storied past and lively present. New Delhi is waiting to whisper its secrets.
So keep those headphones snug, listeners. We're just getting started. So, we're diving into the heart of New Delhi, shining the spotlight on the most iconic sights you simply can't miss.
Oh, absolutely, and where better to start than the majestic India Gate, standing proud right in the center of New Delhi.
You know, every time I pass through Rajpath and see the India Gate looming in the distance, it's like all the chaos of the city just falls away.
I hear you. It's that powerful aura, right? Symbolizing both a war memorial and a triumphal arch, it evokes a profound respect.
Oh, for sure. Did you know that during Republic Day, the entire avenue becomes this grand parade ground?
How could I forget? It's a spectacle, marching bands, beautifully decorated camels, and the best part, those colorful tableaus representing each state.
Oh, speaking of color, there's nothing quite like sunset at India Gate. It's like the sky turns every shade of orange and pink, and then suddenly slashes a violet streak through.
Poetic, Luca, but to your point, it's actually serene during sunset, like the whole city takes a moment to exhale.
Yet there's always these pops of unexpected chaos, like that ice cream vendor who just appears at the right moment.
Ah, New Delhi's serendipitous symphony. But hey, let's move from the British legacy to the Mughal era's masterpiece, the Red Fort.
Ah, the Lal Kila. That impenetrable red sandstone just screams history. Do you remember trying to get that perfect shot from the Lahore Gate?
How could I forget? You, on the other hand, seemed more interested in your Instagram than the fort.
Guilty as charged. But you have to admit, it's picture perfect, the way the light hits those domes and turrets.
True. It's quite surreal to stand where emperors once stood, isn't it?
Absolutely. And to think the Mughals governed their vast empire from right here.
Then there are the stories, like the last Mughal emperor being exiled after the rebellion of 1857. It's like walking through a live history book.
That's New Delhi for you. Speaking of history, you can't talk about the Red Fort without acknowledging its Eid celebrations.
Oh, the magnificent congregation spilling into Chandni Chowk. It captures the communal spirit perfectly.
Certainly does. But now, it's time to crane our necks a bit with the Qutub Minar.
Standing tall at 73 meters, you know it's India's tallest minaret and an excellent example of Indo-Islamic Afghan architecture.
It really is an architectural marvel. Every carving tells a story. Remember those university students you met there?
Yes, such a passionate bunch. They were researching the inscriptions on the tower that chronicles its history, from the victory of Qutbuddin Aibak to later additions by his successors.
You could spend hours looking at the details on each balcony. But hey, which is your favorite aspect of it?
It has to be the iron pillar nearby, this millennia-old, rust-resistant wonder that still puzzles scientists today with its craftsmanship.
From metal to metal, that's New Delhi. You know, with so much to see, it's no wonder we barely scratch the surface each time we visit.
That's the beauty of this city, though. It's layered, and each layer holds its own narrative, ready to envelop you in its story.
Envelope, and sometimes challenge you with its mysteries and secrets.
And to uncover some of those, stay tuned, as in our next segment, we're going to delve into the culinary delights of this teeming metropolis.
Hope you've skipped lunch, because you'll need an empty stomach for the aromatic journey that awaits in our delicious cuisine segment. Welcome back to Travel with Lara and Luca, and we are sinking our teeth into the delicious cuisine of New Delhi.
Oh, New Delhi's food is a love story with 1,000 spices, isn't it, Luca?
Absolutely, Lara. If the street food here was a language, I'd say it's as eloquent as Shakespeare and as playful as Dr. Seuss.
That's a tasty description, though I'd add that it can sometimes challenge the uninitiated with a tongue-twisting heat.
Right you are, my friend. Remember that time we ventured into the world of chaat?
How could I forget? Each bite was like an explosion of tangy, sweet, and spicy, like a flavor carnival in the mouth.
For our listeners, if you haven't tried chaat, imagine this vibrant ensemble of crispy fried dough, yogurt, a myriad of chutneys, and fresh coriander.
And don't forget the pomegranate seeds sprinkled on top.
Oh yes, those little jewels that add a pop of sweetness.
You know, Luca, I think your eyes teared up a bit when you tried that extra spicy green chutney.
Ha! That was an act of bravery or foolishness. I might as well have tried to snuff out a volcano with a paper fan.
And then there are the samosas, the triangular ambassadors of Indian snacks.
Oh, the humble samosa. Perfectly crisp on the outside, warm and comforting inside with that delicious potato filling.
I remember we met that charmingly persuasive shopkeeper who insisted we try every variety. He was quite the samosa evangelist.
Yes, he handcrafted our samosa journey like he was pairing fine wine.
There was the classic potato, then minced lamb, and my favorite, the unconventional yet delightful paneer samosa.
I think we had a bona fide samosa symphony that day.
And let's not forget sitting down to actual meals, the thalis, a palette of flavor served on a metallic canvas typically.
Each compartment is like a peek into a different region of India. You have your dal, sabzi, raita, rice, and roti all in one meal.
And each bite is an homage to the diverse culinary landscape of this vast country.
It makes you realize how New Delhi is a microcosm where all India meets, doesn't it?
It sure does, but we can't talk about Delhi cuisine without mentioning the Mughlai food.
Mughlai food is like the grand romance of cuisine, isn't it? Rich, decadent, and royally satisfying.
The biryani alone, with its layers of fragrant rice and succulent meat, it tells a tale of culinary history in every spoonful.
Oh, and the kebabs. So tender, they narrate the skill and secrets of generations of kebabchis.
I still dream about those shirmal and seekh kebabs we had under the moonlight at that open-air food market.
That was poetic and delicious, Lara. The shirmal was so soft, soaked up the kebab juices just right.
Speaking of poetry, how about that Diwali dinner we shared with a local family?
Oh, that was heartfelt hospitality. The warmth of their home matched the delicacies they served.
The mom's handmade gulab jamun, Luca, I still believe those were a gift from the dessert gods.
It was as if they captured Diwali's essence and transformed it into a sweet symphony.
Such memories we've made, all because of the universal language of good food.
It's the conversations around the table, the laughs, the shared surprises at new tastes. That's the true essence of Delhi's cuisine.
That and the occasional run for a cold lassi after accidentally biting into a whole chili.
Let's not terrify our listeners, although a good lassi does save the day.
Luca, you have become quite the lassi connoisseur.
Guilty as charged. And with that, I think our virtual feast has to come to an end. Don't you think, Lara?
True, but the journey continues. Stay tuned as we discover the hidden gems of New Delhi that are waiting to be revealed, like a precious spice tucked away in a bustling market.
That's coming right up after this delicious segment.
So, wandering away from the bustling streets and into the soul of Delhi, in this segment, we are kindling our curiosity about the hidden gems of the city.
And oh, how many there are, Lara. Some of these places are so veiled in secrecy that even the locals might give you a surprised nod when you mention them.
Absolutely, like the time we discovered the Sufi sanctuary, Nizamuddin Dargah. Nestled in the heart of Nizamuddin West lies this spiritual retreat, brimming with energy, yet shrouded with an unearthly peace.
It's unbelievable how entering the Dargah makes you feel like you've stepped into another world. Remember the mystical qawwalis on Thursday evenings? They tugged at the very strings of the soul.
The voice of the qawwals, echoing through the marble courtyard and the scent of roses and incense, was almost transportive. You can't help but close your eyes and let the rhythm and devotion wash over you.
And there's a communal vibe, isn't there? I mean, regardless of your beliefs, everyone's welcome to sit on the carpet and get lost in the devotion.
It's the embodiment of the Delhi spirit, diverse, profound, and inclusive. For the inquisitive soul, the Nizamuddin Dargah offers a poignant experience unlike any other.
Speaking of unique, did you know, Lara, that Delhi is speckled with some of the most fascinating stepwells?
Are you talking about the Agrasan Ki Baoli near Connaught Place? Because that's like uncovering a historical puzzle. These stepwells, right in the middle of the city, are oases of the past.
Exactly, an architectural marvel if there ever was one. The shadowy setting, the vanishing waterline, and the aura of legends.
Oh, the stories that Baoli could tell, if only stones could speak. And the way the sunlight plays tricks on your eyes as it dances across the descending steps, each one a whisper from centuries gone by.
But not all gems are ancient, right? Remember when we stumbled upon that little puppet theater in the bylanes of Shahpur Jat?
How could I forget? Wasn't it simply supposed to be a shortcut to our favorite cafe? And then there it was, an eruption of color and storytelling.
And the puppeteer was this effervescent character who threw his voice and commandeered his puppets as if they were extensions of his very heart. Kids and adults alike were enraptured.
He told us how puppetry was more than just performance. It was a way to pass down folk tales and history. I remember thinking, what a vivid way to keep culture alive in the digital age.
It's small, offbeat experiences like that which typify the hidden treasures of a city. Treasures that you, our listeners, might walk right by if you don't pause and look around.
Now, Luca, you can't talk hidden gems without mentioning the city's secret gardens, like the Sunder Nursery.
A botanical dream. Who'd have thought, adjacent to the overcrowded Humayun's tomb, you'd find this heritage park?
When I first encountered the flitting butterflies there, the vibrant flower beds, the heritage structures in the midst of restoration, it almost felt like a private viewing of what Eden might have resembled.
And not only is it a feast for your eyes, but history buffs can geek out on the wealth of Mughal monuments within it, many unknown and uncelebrated.
Delhi holds these unsuspecting surprises, these encounters that make an indelible impression on the fabric of your memory.
And the best part, folks, you might think you need a map to these places, but sometimes it's the conversations, the human element, that leads you to these finds.
Speaking of humans, Luca, Delhi's heartbeat is its people. The little tea shop owner in Old Delhi who showed us his family album, the street artist near India Gate. Their stories chart a parallel history of the city.
That's Delhi for you. Layers of narratives, some sung, some unsung. But to hear those, you must wander with an open heart and an alert ear.
Talking of which, let's lend that alert ear to the upcoming segment. Get ready to be amused and amazed as we dig into weird facts about Delhi that might just surprise you.
So here we are, ready to dive into some of New Delhi's absolutely must-see places. The kind you absolutely can't skip, right, Lara?
Exactly, Luca. And we're not just talking about the tourist heavyweights everyone knows about. We're digging into those places that truly capture the soul of the city.
And what better place to start than the Lotus Temple, an architectural masterpiece and a serene sanctuary all in one.
The Lotus Temple, or the Baha'i House of Worship, is not just a feast for the eyes. When you step inside, it's like entering another world. The silence there is so profound.
It's almost like it swallows you whole. You're sitting there on those benches, looking up at the petals of the lotus towering over you, and suddenly...
No spoilers, Luca. Let our listeners feel that magic for themselves when they visit. But yes, it's a transcendent experience. And the beautiful thing is that it's open to all, regardless of religion.
Did you know they hold prayers and readings from different faiths there? It's like a symphony of spirituality. Every note from a different religion, but all in harmony.
Poetry in motion, my friend. And speaking of movement, let's talk about the water at Akshardham Temple. The musical fountain show there is nothing short of spectacular.
You're right. Akshardham, that's not just a temple, it's a cultural odyssey. The size alone is staggering, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The temple complex is massive, and the attention to detail in the carvings alone can keep you mesmerized for hours.
I have a confession. I spent a good 20 minutes just staring at a single elephant sculpture, following the intricate patterns with my eyes. And that's just one tiny part of the whole place.
I believe you. Every element there tells a story, from warriors to dancers to deities. It's a grand narrative etched in stone.
And the garden surrounding it, Lara. Remember the time we walked through the Garden of India?
How could I forget? Lush greenery, with bronze statues of India's heroes throughout history. It's both a walk in the park and a walk through time.
Akshardham Temple is not just a visit, it's an event. You need to allocate a whole day for it. Trust us, it's worth every moment.
Be prepared for the sheer number of visitors, though. Crowds flock there, and it's no surprise. But with a bit of patience, you get to witness the art, spirituality, and splendor in full bloom.
Just like lotus flowers, which seem to be a recurring theme in New Delhi's architecture, don't they?
They do, symbolizing purity and rebirth, which fits perfectly with the city's ever-evolving nature.
Speaking of evolution, I remember the very first time we visited Raj Ghat. Talk about a place of quiet reflection.
Gandhi's memorial is shrouded in simplicity and peace. You can't help but reflect on his philosophy and messages of nonviolent resistance.
It's a humbling experience, and to think about how just one man's ideas contributed to shaping modern India is...
It's awe-inspiring. It reminds you of the power of an individual's conviction and strength of character.
New Delhi's must-see places are like snippets of a larger narrative. One tells a story of peace, the other of cultural grandeur, and each with its unique backdrop.
They're places where you don't just see, you feel. You connect with deeper currents of history, belief, and beauty.
Well said, Lara. That feeling is exactly what we chase when we travel. It's the heartbeat of exploration.
It's about discovering the soul of a city, uncovering layers of time, and seeing the world through a different perspective.
As we wrap up this segment on must-see places, I hope we've painted a picture vibrant enough to tempt all you listeners out there to experience these wonders firsthand.
And wait until you hear about the weird and wonderful facts we've uncovered about New Delhi in our next segment.
Facts so peculiar, they'll make you question the sanity of the past and marvel at the colorful tapestry that is New Delhi's history.
You won't want to miss it, I assure you. Stick around as we delve into the bizarre, the strange, and the simply unbelievable.
Because New Delhi is a city where even the facts have a touch of the fantastic. Until next time, keep that wanderlust alive. So Lara, have you ever wondered if your chai could come with a side of ghost stories in New Delhi?
Always, Luca. New Delhi isn't just the city of politics and parathas. It's also the city where history and mystery walk hand in hand down narrow alleys.
Right you are. And for this segment, we bring to you the weird, the wonderful, and the wacky facts about New Delhi.
Let's start off with something that's going to make our listeners' jaws drop. Luca, did you know there's a place in Delhi that defies gravity?
Are you talking about the legendary mystery of the Iron Pillar at the Qutub complex? Legend says that it's been standing without rusting for over a millennium because it has some sort of anti-gravitational field around it.
Exactly. Could you imagine the look on the archaeologist's face when he first tested it? The scientific explanation does put it down to the metallurgy, but I like to think there's a little bit of magic in there.
Magic or no magic, it's these kinds of stories that make you look at New Delhi with that childlike wonder.
Talking about wonder, have you ever been at a bar in Delhi and thought to yourself, this feels oddly like it should be in a spy novel?
I thought that was just the way I felt after my third gimlet.
Cute, but no, Luca. There are speakeasies in Delhi that you need a secret password to enter. They are often hidden behind what looks like a typical shop.
So you're telling me, if I say open sesame, I could be on my way to getting that gimlet?
Possibly, but the password changes regularly. It's like living in a Prohibition-era enclave with all the modern comforts.
Oh, but the quirks of New Delhi don't end there. Haven't you heard about the monkeys that have official government employment?
You mean the monkey repellers at some of Delhi's public buildings? Yep, there are people whose job is to scare off monkeys by mimicking the calls of languors.
It's like something out of a comedy sketch, but it's just another day in New Delhi.
Now, here's something that sharpens our edge a bit. Did you know New Delhi has its very own knife sharpeners market?
I did not, but something tells me this isn't your average collection of cutlery enthusiasts.
Right again. They actually sharpen everything from kitchen knives to ancient swords, and they've been passing down their craft for generations.
Speaking of old professions, there's a very peculiar one about the poets in Mughal courts in Delhi. They used to have poetry battles, like rap battles, but way more refined.
Imagine the diss tracks they could have come up with.
Moving on from refined rap battles to something truly offbeat. Did you know Delhi has an entire museum dedicated to toilets?
I know it sounds like we're flushing good taste down the drain, but it's all about the history and evolution of sanitation.
Their strangest exhibit is a replica of King Louis XIV's throne toilet. Apparently his royal rear had very grand seating.
From grand thrones to haunted tales, Delhi doesn't trail far behind when it comes to spirits and spooks.
Ah, yes, the infamous Delhi Cantonment Road that's better not taken after dark. People claim to see a woman in white asking for a lift.
Gives a whole new meaning to hitchhiking, doesn't it? But that's not the only haunted place. There's the Jamali Kamali Mosque that's said to be a hotbed for jinn sightings.
I'd rather run into genies that grant wishes than those jinns, to be honest.
Now for a sweet, weird fact. Did you know Delhi has a temple devoted to the god of cricket?
Yes, the lord of cricket bats and balls. In a country where cricket is a religion, it's only fitting it has its own place of worship.
Truly, there's never a dull moment in this city. Whether it's a temple worshipping a sport or poetry battles, Delhi has it all tucked away in its vibrant and sometimes odd corners.
And on that note, we should start preparing our listeners for the next segment where we overindulge in tales and more tangible artifacts.
That's right. In our next segment, we're traveling back in time through the historic alleys of Delhi. We will look at stories etched in stone and whispered by the ancient walls.
So stay tuned as we dive into the history of the capital city, which is as layered as the flaky croissants at our favorite Delhi bakery.
All right, history buffs, buckle up because in this segment of Travel with Lara and Luca, we're diving into the deep historical currents of New Delhi.
Truly, if these ancient streets could talk, they would never stop. Delhi's history is more layered than my grandmother's lasagna.
Oh, your grandmother's lasagna is legendary, but yes, Delhi. Did you know, Luca, that Delhi's story goes back over 2,500 years?
That's ancient. We're talking way back in the days of the Mahabharata, the epic Sanskrit poem. The city was then known as Indraprastha.
Right on, Luca. Home to the Pandavas, the 5 warrior princes. Now, fast forward to the 12th century, the city was then the seat of various empires, including the Delhi Sultanate.
Oh, and let's not forget about Prithviraj Chauhan, the Rajput king celebrated for his valor. He's often associated with Delhi's early historical narrative.
Totally. But his reign was cut short by the invader Muhammad Ghori, sweeping in a long era where different dynasties took turns ruling Delhi.
The city saw the rise and fall of many a ruler. Then came one of the most illustrious lineages, Lara.
The Mughals. Delhi hit its stride under their rule, becoming a hub of art, culture, and architecture. They beautified Delhi with gardens, forts, and mosques.
True that. And can we talk about Shah Jahan? I mean, the dude moved his capital from Agra to Delhi and built Shah Jahanabad, which includes the Red Fort and the largest mosque in India, Jama Masjid.
The very same Shah Jahan built the Taj Mahal in memory of his beloved wife. Such passion, such extravagance.
But all that glitters isn't gold. The decline of the Mughal Empire left a power vacuum soon to be filled by
the British East India Company. Old Delhi was about to get a neighbor, Lutyens Delhi, named after the British architect Edwin Lutyens.
That's right. The Brits decided they wanted a slice of the Delhi pie and went on to establish New Delhi as the capital of their Indian colony in 1911.
The irony, Luca, is they planned to rule there for centuries. Yet the British Raj crumbled in a few decades and India gained independence in 1947.
A day that marked the beginning of a new chapter. Post-independence, New Delhi didn't just carry on. It emerged as the heart of the world's largest democracy.
Speaking of post-independence, I recently had an enlightening conversation with a history professor right at Humayun's tomb.
Humayun's tomb, such a marvelous place. What did the professor say?
He said Humayun's tomb is actually a precursor to the Taj Mahal. It set the precedent for grand Mughal architecture.
It makes sense. His widow commissioned it, and it's the first garden tomb on the Indian subcontinent.
Exactly. And it's not just a tomb, it's a legacy of the Mughal architectural genius that is echoed in the later wonders of the empire.
Delhi is indeed a living, breathing history book. From the mystic Sufi saints buried in Nizamuddin to the freedom fighters and political giants post-independence.
And let's not forget the partition of India, a pivotal moment in New Delhi's history. The city transformed as it absorbed a massive number of refugees.
Such a turbulent time, but New Delhi rose from the ashes like a phoenix, steadfastly becoming a symbol of India's resilience and ambition.
That's New Delhi for you, an enigmatic blend of past and present. Isn't it fascinating how the city is shaped by every era it has lived through?
Absolutely, Lara. It's like each bygone era left its footprints here, contributing to the New Delhi we see today.
Well, folks, as much as we love discussing kings and empires, it's time to switch gears and move from the storied past to
expert travel tips. Coming up next, we've got your back with wisdom born from our very own escapades.
So stay tuned as we spill secrets that'll make your journey to New Delhi feel like you've got the Midas touch. All that glitters will be gold for you. See you in a bit.
So, now that we've wandered through the enchanting sights and nibbled on some of Delhi's culinary magic, let's pivot to something every traveler needs but often overlooks. Expert travel tips for navigating New Delhi.
Ah yes, Luca, the quintessential suitcase of wisdom for any journey. And Delhi, delightful as she is, does have her own set of challenges and tricks to reveal.
Absolutely, Lara. And I'll kick things off with the basics. Packing for New Delhi can be pretty straightforward, but it's all about layers.
Layers are the secret weapon of the smart traveler. Delhi's weather can be extreme. From the blistering heat to somewhat chilly winters, you've got to be prepared for the switcheroo.
And don't forget those rain showers during the monsoon season. An umbrella that doubles as a sunshade is your best friend.
Now, Luca, let's talk about transport. Delhi's metro system is a gem, high-speed, air-conditioned, and so cost-effective.
Indeed, and it's a great way to avoid the notorious traffic snarls. But remember when I tried to exit the metro during rush hour at Rajiv Chowk?
Oh, the Metro Marathon. Listeners, picture this, Luca engulfed by a sea of humanity clinging to his backpack like a life raft.
It was like synchronized swimming without the gracefulness. So a hot tip, avoid peak hours on the metro if you treasure your personal space.
Speaking of personal space, rickshaws and taxis are everywhere, but fare negotiations can be, how shall I say, an energetic process.
Energetic is politely putting it. Use those ride-hailing apps when you can, folks. They give you a fair price, and you can avoid the fare tango.
And Luca, what about that time you thought you could walk from the India Gate to Connaught Place?
Ah, Lara, my naive feet still haven't forgiven me. Delhi's scale can be deceptive. Always overestimate your travel times and distances between places.
Delhites are incredibly friendly, but remember, the city can be overwhelming for a newcomer. So, sharpen your street smarts.
Right. Keep your wits about you and your belongings secure. And Lara's got a story that shows exactly why this is important, don't you?
I do. During Holi, I was all caught up in the festivities, splashing colors, dancing in the streets, and then, poof, my purse vanished like a magician's trick.
Thankfully, it was a local kid playing a prank, and her purse was returned. But it's a lesson learned. Always have a secure bag, especially during festivals.
Now, let's sidestep from practical tips to cultural insights. Delhi is a mosaic of traditions and customs, and a little bit of cultural know-how goes a long way, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. Like when I enthusiastically joined in on a family's Diwali prayer without knowing the customs.
He stood up when everyone sat down and sat down when everyone stood up. Luca, you were a folding human accordion.
But here's the beauty of it. No one minded. They appreciated the effort. So don't shy away from participating in cultural events. Just show respect and follow their lead.
True that. Also, when visiting religious sites, dress modestly. Cover your head, remove your shoes, and soak in the serenity.
Ah, which reminds me, bargaining is practically a sport in the local markets. It's expected, even encouraged.
Absolutely, but there's an art to it. Start low, but don't be insulting. Smile, be friendly, and remember it's all in good fun.
Now, for the daring souls, street food. Foodies, listen up. The street food is delectable, but the Delhi belly is not a myth.
We learned that the hard way, didn't we? The rule of thumb, eat where there's a crowd. It likely means high turnover and fresher food, and always, always watch your food being prepared.
And keep a bottle of mineral water at hand. Stay hydrated, but steer clear of ice cubes and tap water.
All right, Luca, here's a question for you. Any final tip for our dear travelers?
Oh, I've got a golden one. Take an extra memory card for your camera. Delhi is photogenic to a fault, and you'll run out of space before you can say Qutub Minar.
Good one, Luca. And with that, our treasure chest of travel wisdom for Delhi is ready to be unlocked by our fellow adventurers.
We hope these tips will help you navigate the streets of New Delhi with confidence and ease.
And that's a wrap on this episode's travel tips. Up next, we've got something just for those who want to stretch their legs a bit further. Side excursions from New Delhi.
Until then, keep your travel dreams vibrant and your adventures exciting. Stick around for tales of fortresses in the clouds and spiritual sunrises. Get ready to pack your bags again, travelers, because we're taking a little detour outside of New Delhi's heart. Side excursions, yes, those splendid spins on the usual journey, they're what we're diving into today.
And what a spin we have in store. You've seen the temples, tasted the tangy tamarind, and danced with the history of bustling bazaars. But there is so much more to explore just a short journey from the city's edges.
Absolutely, Lara. Many people think of Agra when they look at side trips from Delhi, and of course we can't escape the magnetic pull of the Taj Mahal. But let's nudge our compass a degree less trodden, shall we?
I'm with you. Everyone knows about the love story etched in marble, but what about the birthplace of Krishna? Just a 2-hour drive from New Delhi, you can find yourself in Mathura. a city dipped in myth and legend.
Oh, the color there is incredible during Holi. It's like you're inside a swirling kaleidoscope of joy.
And speaking of color, let's not forget Vrindavan, right next door to Mathura. Here, the Holi festivities are at a different level of divine. The Banka Bihari temple hosts a week-long celebration that's like nothing else on earth.
It's mesmerizing, Lara. And if we're on the trail of spirituality, how can we skip the ancient city of Varanasi? Can you even believe it's just an overnight train ride away?
The heart of Indian spirituality. And they say one dip in the holy Ganges there can wash away a lifetime of sins.
If that was true, I'd be sparkling by now, Lara. Varanasi isn't just about liberation and rituals. It's also about the music, the silk weaving, the essence of an age-old city pulsing around you.
The Ghats at sunrise, they're poetry, aren't they? Swathed in the gentle morning light, with the sound of temple bells and the soft hum of chanting, it's an experience that imprints on your soul.
And for those with a taste for adventure, how about pushing into Rajasthan? Jaipur is known as the Pink City, but that's not all Rajasthan has to offer.
Absolutely. Take a drive to Ranthambore National Park. The thrill of spotting a majestic tiger in the wild is hard to match.
Remember that time we almost ran out of gas on the way?
How could I forget? It turned into an unintended safari. We spotted so many peacocks and deer while waiting for help to arrive.
Now that's an adventure. Yet, we were mentioning hidden treasures, remember? Let's step away from the wildlife and wander into the angular beauty of Nimrana.
The fort palace there is something out of a storybook, isn't it? Living in a historical monument, even just for a night, feels like time traveling to the days of the Rajputs.
Sliding down the zip lines there is a must. The fort is even more spectacular from a bird's eye view.
For our final plunge, let's venture into the mountains. Shimla and its colonial charm is hardly a secret, but Kasauli with its tranquil bookstores and breathtaking mountain trails is less traveled.
Less traveled and utterly charming. There's a peculiar quiet magic in those hills. Remember the sunset from Monkey Point? The entire valley looked like it was set ablaze with russet hues.
Breathtaking, Luca. And just like that, we encourage all of you listening to seek out the roads, not just less traveled, but also near New Delhi. Every side trip comes with a story, a memory, a sudden twist, or a quiet corner that might just change the way you see the world.
Side excursions, folks. They're deserving of their spot in every itinerary. But don't just take our word for it. In our next segment, we're wrapping everything up. We'll look back at our collective journey.
And share some parting food for thought, a few final travel tidbits, and of course, our heartfelt goodbyes.
So, join us as we close this incredible exploration of New Delhi and stir the wanderlust that beckons from beyond its borders.
Until then, keep dreaming of the paths awaiting your footsteps, the horizons yet seen, and the tales untold. Onward to the conclusion of our adventure.
And here we are, at the end of our whirlwind tour through the bustling streets and serene corners of New Delhi. I must say, Lara, every time we talk about this city, it's like I can see it all over again, vivid and vibrant.
It's the magic of Delhi, Luca. It keeps you coming back, doesn't it? Those stories we've shared today are just glimmers of what this city holds. Segments fly by when you're lost in nostalgia.
So true. Remember when we started with the iconic landmarks? That sweep of history at India Gate seemed to set the tone for the whole journey.
Oh, definitely. Each site, from the fortresses to the temples, felt like turning a page in a historical epic. And speaking of epics, those culinary adventures, my taste buds are dancing, just reminiscing about the chaat.
Got to say, I can still feel that burn from the spicy chutney. But what amazed me most was diving into those vibrant tales behind the hidden gems and the weird, quirky facts. They're what really texture a city's narrative, aren't they?
They truly are in the history. New Delhi is a city that wears its past proudly, each era layering atop the last, like the fashions of Connaught Place.
Couldn't agree more. But let's not forget those travel tips. After all, we want our listeners to venture beyond our stories and see it all for themselves. Like how not to get swept away in the chaos of Old Delhi. Always haggle for that rickshaw fare.
That's invaluable advice. Wisdom drawn from experience, sometimes the hard way. We're like those benevolent spirits warning adventurers of the trickster spirits in folklores.
Exactly. This episode's side excursions segment was like lifting the corner of a rug to reveal hidden treasures beneath. The jaunts to Jaipur, the spiritual journeys to Varanasi, there's a whole world around Delhi waiting to be explored.
And that makes for great fodder for tales. You don't just visit places, you absorb their essence, their history, and you bring back stories soaked in their colors.
Those stories do make the best souvenirs. And speaking of which, I hope we've packed our listeners' imaginations full of the sights, tastes, and sounds of New Delhi.
Not to mention a desire to start writing their own narratives. To our intrepid listeners, may your travels be safe, your memories vivid, and your hearts always adventurous.
Because after all, the stories we gather are the patches in the quilt of our lives, making it warmer, more colorful, and something to cherish.
Absolutely. We may have reached the end of this episode, but the journey, as they say, is just beginning. Thank you for letting us be your chatty, enlightening companions on this expedition to New Delhi.
It's been a joy and an honor. And as we sign off, remember, wherever your travels may take you, there's always a story around the corner, a laugh to be shared, and a new experience to embrace.
So keep your passports ready and your minds open. Until next time, when we explore another magnificent corner of this incredible world.
And hey, perhaps pack a little light next time. The stories you gain will more than make up for the extra pair of shoes. Trust me.
Stay curious, stay kind, and most importantly, stay adventurous. This is Lara.
And Luca, bidding you farewell, but not goodbye. Join us next time on Travel with Lara and Luca as we jump aboard the Trans-Siberian Railway for an epic journey through Russia's vast landscapes.
From the silhouettes of Kremlin towers to the serene shores of Lake Baikal, get ready for a ride.
Until then, fellow travelers, keep wandering and wondering.
Take care and see you on the flip side of the globe.